Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Natha Perkins of Electroastrology, and this is Astrology for Awakening. I'm taking all of my podcast episodes from 2024 and I'm repurposing them. I'm editing out the things that are irrelevant, and I'm just releasing them on YouTube only so that it can be a cohesive body of teachings, because we all have so much to learn from all of these archetypes. You do not have to be a Sagittarius in this case. We're working on Sagittarius season. You do not have to be a Sagittarius to benefit from knowing this archetype. It is in your chart somewhere, and you are acting it out on a daily basis, believe it or not. Yes. So the first few of these episodes that I'm taking from my podcast Star Narrative are audio only. So you're just going to have to go old school and listen. And today we are talking about the Sagittarius shadow. And Sagittarius is one of those archetypes that everybody loves. It's very fun. It's very outgoing and jovial, and it's big energy. And there's definitely a shadow to it. We talk a lot in this episode about being bored. And God, boredom is painful, isn't it? But another thing, and this is something that we have all been experiencing a lot of as we have navigated from 2020 all the way until now, and I'm recording this in December of 2024. But of course, if you're listening to this in the future, you lived through that time period, so you can apply what it was like for you to this next statement. But we have all been on our high horses of feeling like we know it all. Like we know what's best. We know the answers. We have our own belief systems and the things that we take to be true, the things that we are willing to argue about. And there's been a loftiness that's been really culturally encouraged. This idea that you can stand on your platform or on your soapbox and preach to everybody, prophesize about what you believe to be right. And that is a Sagittarius shadow as well. So with Sagittarius, everything is bigger, larger than life, including our righteousness. But there's hope for all of us. I know there is, especially as we recognize it and we challenge ourselves and kind of call ourselves on, our stuff. If you like my style, by the way, and you want to work with me privately, you can find me at electroastrology.com. I have mentorships. I have apprenticeships. I teach people how to understand astrology in a really, really deep way, spiritual, psychological, and I also help people to just understand the basics of astrology so that you can apply it really easily to know yourself better. And that's the whole point for me with astrology. It's not to predict your future or to tell you about who you are. It's to have you self-inquire so that you come to an understanding of who you are in a really organized fashion. All right, well, let's dive in. The Sagittarius shadow. So we're going to talk about Sagittarius. Now, this is our third week of Sagittarius, so we're going through this archetype with a pretty fine-tooth comb. In our first week, we talked about that transition from Scorpio into Sag. Scorpio takes us down into the fine details. It helps us to see the truth. And usually it's the truth of a situation. It's very easy for us to pull a detail out of context or to take a chunk of a story, something that happened historically, without taking into account everything else that was going on at the same time. And then developing a shell or a defensiveness around that, not wanting to be hurt again, wanting to make sure that we are protected from the fear that was generated when that specific thing happened. And then with Sagittarius, it takes us up and into the higher perspective. So it helps us to see all of the moving parts of any given situation. And so these two archetypes work really well together. In our second week, we talked about Gemini and Sagittarius, how these two signs are always in tandem. With Gemini, a sign of the mind relates to the details, to the facts, to the way that we input information, to the way that we communicate about information, and sometimes the way that we get overwhelmed with everything that's coming into our field of awareness. And then Sagittarius, the other side of that coin, talks once again, that higher perspective. It helps you to alchemize all of the facts and the little tiny things that are coming in with Gemini. It helps you to create a full picture with all of it. So we need both of those. Whether you have a lot of Gemini or Sagittarius in your chart or not, you have those things in your natal chart. So you are always dealing with those energies. And today we're going to talk about the shadow side of Sagittarius. So if you are a Sag sun or you have a lot of Sag in your chart, no offense to you. That's one of the things about Sag is that it is such a fun, loving, excitable sign. It's ruled by the planet Jupiter. A lot of times Sagittarius can't even deal with shadow. It doesn't even want to go there. It does not want to get into big, heavy conversations. It does not want to go exploring, looking for what's wrong. And so we'll start right there. That is a big piece of Sag, is this avoidance, this not wanting to acknowledge where things are problematic or where things really require a deepening into or some sort of conflict resolution. Sag has a basic fear, and that basic fear is of being bored or of being flat or of not having much going on. And Sagittarius will counter that fear by generating excitement, by planning a party, planning a trip. If you've ever had a bored, flat moment in your own life where you look around and you feel unfulfilled or you feel listless, and you went ahead and planned a trip or decided to do something really fun and outgoing and meeting up with friends, anything like that, that would have been a very Sagittarius solution. Last year, when we talked about Sag season in the Hidden Wisdom Astrology Circle, so many of us complained about boredom and how much we hate boredom. How often boredom dragged us into situations that were out of alignment. That brings me to another Sag shadow, which is boredom. That sense that there's nothing exciting going on. There can be a resistance to the present moment. We talked last week about Gemini being so connected to the present moment and how important it is to halt all of that information, all of those swirling thoughts periodically so that you could just be in the present moment. But one of the problems with the present moment is that it's kind of boring. There's not that much going on. And so our brains want to take us to either reminisce about the past or fantasize about the future. And Sagittarius will do that in a way, it's almost like a way to avoid feeling is to be elevating the energy by planning something or idealizing or optimizing, even just distraction by being out and being social. The archetype of Jupiter, the jolly man that overindulges, that drinks too much and eats too much and has too much fun. Your internal Sagittarius parts might very well connect with that. You might also notice places in your life where instead of having to face a problem, having to work with something that's unpleasant, that you might have moved straight into some sort of fun, some sort of party. So this brings me to the next shadow of Sagittarius, which is restlessness, which goes along with being bored. But this restlessness can translate into things like procrastination, or being scattered, not really having all of the details, putting things off until the very end. This correlates with a lack of commitment because this tendency to constantly seek change or constantly seek out something that is more exciting or more exhilarating. Sagittarius is a mutable sign, and the mutable signs do like to have the freedom of options, like to be able to do whatever feels the best in the moment. But there's something about Sagittarius where you want to be careful that you're not overindulging in always seeking out fun. Sagittarius can be very impatient, and that impatience can lead to bigger problems. Like I said, how many times in your life has some form of boredom led you straight into trouble? Some sort of activity where in hindsight, you look and you say, why did I do that? Why did I have so much to drink? Why did I go hang out with that person? Why was I indulging in that flirtation when I had no business doing so? You want to watch your tendency for overconfidence, for feeling as if you are invincible, for feeling as if the only thing to do is to try to generate some sort of thrill, Sagittarius really is a beautiful archetype, and we need it because it helps us. It is a breath of fresh air. We just need to make sure that we aren't operating on the side where it can bring us down. It can lower our vibration. Really, that's the whole point of all of this. If you're listening to this podcast, is you are practicing deepening your own awareness of what's happening in your life so that you feel more empowered.